they've scheduled a hearing for it. Or they haven't scheduled it yet, but they told me I am going to get one.
Hey, Joey.
Just FYI.
Oh, we're alive. Okay.
What's
Hey,
up,
Joey.
Isaiah?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going all right.
Oh, somebody didn't mute the stream.
Have any of you guys seen the movie Don't Look Up yet? I know Joey said
I
he
have
did.
not.
I have not. I've been meaning to see that.
I keep thinking about it and then not doing it. But I will soon enough.
I think for me is because like I want to like not like watch it on like my phone or my tablet as I'm going into like work or something like that, or coming from work, and because that's not like an hour and a half it's a work, thank God. But like I want to like actually sit down in front of my computer and watch it all the way through. And when I come home, I'm just like, first instinct is not to like open up Netflix, is to like open up other things, as it were, games in my H folder, I should say. I'll say it like that. Otherwise, no. It's so many people have like saying, like Steve Shots like tweeted out, like I watched this documentary of Don't Look Up, and I'm kind of like, okay. Like another comrade also said to DM me privately, it's like, Jonathan, you gotta like watch like, or Summer Geek, you gotta watch Don't Look Up. With your politics, you will like this show. It's just like, okay, I trust this person's politics as well. So yeah. So no, I haven't seen it yet.
I just saw it yesterday. It was a good movie.
It made me laugh. It's very it's very poignant to our time.
Yeah, I was seeing a discussion actually just before the show today where people were talking about what allegory it was meant to show. Like, is it the meteor supposed to be climate change, or is the meteor supposed to be the pandemic? I think the meteor is just supposed to represent any freaking emergency that we're looking at. It can represent either one.
Right, because like
Right.
I've been meaning to tweet this out because kind of like, okay, look at the society's responses as varied as it is to the pandemic, to COVID-19, to that we have to stay in our homes, and how certain governors responded to like, this is what you need to do in order to like for us to flatten the curve and all in order to do that. And we're now in starting year 3 of the 2-week pandemic, and it's kind of like, okay, how our society and government has responded to like the disaster, the global disaster, the pandemic. That's how it's going to respond to like any disaster of like climate change worthy, or the tornadoes through Kentucky. Yeah, there's tornado warnings, but like you gotta continue to finish your shift at the Amazon fulfillment center or the candle factory. The tsunami.
Well, I put it this way: if they were telling me that I got fired if I took shelter, I've been like, bye.
Like Nick Anderson, like I said, there was like someone who was actually one of the towers, the Twin Towers, that said like, unfortunately I had to like stay at work, to which his wife said to him, it's like, if you don't cut down there out of that tower now, I'm gonna divorce you. And he went down the tower immediately after that message as well. And lucky for him survived, but well, others that were forced to stay to work didn't. Yeah. But hey, David Scott, Comrade I, Bob Mithril, and hello Mithril, welcome to joining us, and Emery Chambers and Taffy, hello everyone. I
don't know if I'm audible or not, but happy
You
to
are.
hear you guys.
I did find Meryl Streep attractive in that movie, though.
actually, hey, I haven't seen the movie yet, but Meryl Streep is like, yeah, she looks good for her age. Yeah, she looks good.
Oh, for her age. Wow. Way to qualify that. Racist.
Here's the thing.
Unless you prefer Nancy Reagan, of course.
Hey, to be fair, I honestly don't know how old that Meryl Streep is. I know that she's been like in a bunch
She's
of
a woman
stuff.
of a certain age.
I think she's in her 70s, I think.
It is.
I was going to say she's got to be at least in her 60s, right?
Yeah, at least like that. Oh, that'll be the
She's 72.
Jeez.
like that. Hey, I don't. And I'm just gonna like say he's either good genes or just like a good plastic surgery. But either way, I don't care.
Well, and it's also years and years worth of personal trainers and specialists and
Money,
like
money, money,
the most
money.
expensive
Hey,
creams ever invented.
don't hate. I don't take any of that, but I still look good. I'm 29.
Okay, but you're black. That is the difference. Meryl Streep is white, so she probably needs the plastic surgery, the special creams, the like, and someone like a dietitian like being on her about the strict like diet of whatever kind, like the raw diet, as it were. I heard what was the actress? I heard one of the other actresses that I know like supposedly is on the like a raw diet, as it were. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you got people like J-Lo, who's J-Lo isn't white, but she,
But again, that's the thing, isn't white. But you mean that to imply that JLo probably has some like surgeries? And I'm not going to shame anyone that like wants to like do any alterations to their bodies whatsoever. I mean, I'm non-binary. I have many trans friends, and so like that they need that alterations to their bodies in order to be feel affirming, as it were. So for whatever reason, even if it's just like their models, and
I mean, people pay a lot of money to look like they look. I mean,
Sure.
that's just how people are.
Mm-hmm.
If they have the money, they pay to look.
alcohol and cigarettes to get the way I look.
Like I've got tattoos.
Yes, exactly.
I've paid money to look the way that I look too.
Mm-hmm.
I've never gotten a tattoo. If I got a tattoo, it would be the autism puzzle piece with an anarchy sign in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
So good news that to round out the old year.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell from the meme that I just put up, which you guys won't be able to see for like 30 more seconds. Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes, I love that meme you posted to Facebook. Maybe that's going to be the same one that you. Yes. Okay. Hey,
now you can see it.
Yes, true love is finishing each other's sentences. Yep, she was arraigned, found guilty in court of law for 5 out of the 6 charges that is against her for sex trafficking and all terrible this as well.
There was a rather good piece in the Observer today, which is the sort of Sunday equivalent of the Guardian, pointing out the fact that a lot of the press, including of course the fucking BBC, are continuing to call her the socialite Ghislaine Maxwell rather than the convicted sex
Pedophile,
trafficker,
rapist.
which is what they should be calling her now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be definitely convicted sex trafficker, not socialite. Like,
Yeah.
She's not going to be doing a whole lot of socializing in prison.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because Bernie Madoff got a stays in a pretty nice prison, but he's like he won't be getting out for another 100 years or so. So
Yep. But that is like good news to like here. So like I guess it's like either like if the crime's big enough or it's against like the certain people as it were, or even for this justice system as where if you do such terrible things like even this justice system says like no, you're doing horrible crimes, horribleness as where this is beyond the pale for even for us. You're going to jail.
She's white and she's rich. She'll get 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. I'm afraid. Yeah, or my money's on like 6 years as it were. And plus also she can like she can like we have said that like she will get the nice prisons as it were, like the super max prisons as opposed to like the minimum low max prisons as were.
yeah.
She should be sent to that shitty prison in Louisiana, is it? That's got something like 80% of its population is people of color.
I'm pretty sure that's all of them, actually.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah.
In Louisiana, yes.
Louisiana, yes. Or Mississippi.
Mississippi, the last state to change its like a flag from like a Confederate battle flag as part of it.
Well, in the South, that's actually not the worst thing. Actually, I think in North Carolina or South Carolina, they were the last state to legalize interracial marriage. Ooh. They didn't do it till like 2000, even though it was on even though even though
They didn't
it
remove
wasn't
the ineffective ban on interracial
right.
marriage.
Yeah, Mississippi didn't get rid of slavery until 1995.
Then that's
No,
interesting.
it still hasn't gotten rid of slavery because it has presence.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how Dusty Smith lives there. But
He's
it's
white.
nice that
It's easier for him.
It
Yeah.
is easier for him. He is white, yes.
he said that too. He says that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he at least recognizes that it's also cheap to live there, I'm sure too. So yeah. And hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, and so yeah, so we have finally turned over not only a new day, but a new week and so, but a new year. Do any of you make a big deal of that?
Well,
Technically, every year
I'm,
is a revolution.
I'm still watching the James Webb Telescope and how that's working, and that's
Mhm.
that's
cool.
It got
working.
launched on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I heard about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do anything for it.
No,
Yeah.
no, I kind of slept through it until our next door neighbours set off a load of fireworks.
Yeah, I happen to be I have to be like streaming with a friend Necronomicon over on Twitch. It was kind of like she wanted to like do like a extreme ghost 12-hour stream only because like it's been a while since she last streamed, but she also invited me on to like play poker and tabletop simulator, so that was actually kind of fun, even though trying to like learn how to play poker and tabletop simulator, a program I never used before, was interesting in its own right, or had its challenges. But then we also like play golf for friends, and it's just like, oh, it's the new year. Okay.
I might be
That's
moving
it.
to Titusville in June.
Ooh, right on.
Yeah, it's where NASA is, so
Mhm.
that's the only reason why I'm moving out there.
Right. I mean, that totally makes sense to like move to a place that's close to your interests, as it were.
Yeah.
I completely misread what Lucifer just wrote and thought it said the James Weeb telescope. It's something very different, I think.
You don't want to see James Weeb fully deployed.
Yeah. I don't know about that, Joe. I don't know about the 13th Amendment, as it were, until Mike Moore shows shamed them, as it were.
No, you weren't allowed to not ratify the 13th Amendment. That was part of Reconstruction. You weren't allowed back in until you ratified, so that's not true.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that like Michael Moore did like to shame some state, as it were, to try to like do the decent thing, as it were. But it's just like, but yeah, the New Year's is just like, I don't even make the New Year's resolutions either, because I think you can like make every day like a resolution. Now you
and also New Year's resolutions don't work.
Yeah. They suck, and then I always feel guilty for breaking them when I tried them.
Yes.
So
I've given up feeling guilty.
like, fuck that.
That's
I'm more in favor of New Year revolutions anyway. So
exactly, yes, exactly, and every day's a revolution too. I think Andrew Lloyd Davis like has the saying as where I wake up every day believing that like each and every day I can like change the world, or the world can be changed. Because if I don't, why bother getting up to like do the things?
We'll look at it this way. I kind of look at it that like, is capitalism on its last legs because like workers are revolting? They're not taking people's bullshit anymore. It's like people are looking at a 4-day work week now. So yeah, change is coming. It's just coming too
If we got rid
slow
of all
for
the
us.
bullshit jobs, we could probably go down to a 3-day, 5-hour-a-day work week.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is like that some of those around the like 1920s, as it were, and like between 1917 and 1930, there was a lot of radical like action, as it were. That's the time that like Emma Goldman and Elsa Berkman lived. You can like read their books and their Texas were like Emma Goldman was giving like tours and speeches throughout the country, and some of those speeches were like got transcribed and put into her book Anarchism and their essays. But yet, what did that lead to? It led to like a FDR. It did got FDR to like say, okay, if I need to save capitalism, I got to give the workers something, so that like they don't like a revolution like they did it over in Russia in 1917, because that just happened at that time, and that one was successful, unlike the 1905 one. And so it's just like we got to do something. So he created the New Deal, which for white people. It was only for white people. It gave them all the things that like was never instituted in America up until that point. There was never a minimum wage. There was never even a Social Security. There was never like
unemployment insurance, Medicare and Medicaid.
Yes,
all that stuff. Regulated the hell out of the banks.
And the national parks
massively ramped up public spending.
Yes, exactly too.
Well, I think that's one of the things that always gets me about, like, when I'm talking to libertarians, we're talking about people who don't even understand that capitalism is young, that it's not even that old, that, human beings have been around a lot longer than capitalism has.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just like societies have existed without it until the Europeans came and brought it over there.
But even I'm reading The Dawn of Everything, the last book that David Graeber wrote with David Wingro. I'm in chapter 8. There were societies even in Europe before the 1600s that were doing things non-capitalistic as well. True, yeah, there was feudalism before that, but they were talking about even long before that. Because even societies like in the Europe, pre-Ice Age or post-Ice Age, were doing some egalitarian things as well, or not necessarily the typical things that Rousseau and Hobbes would think would be the state of nature and it's a terrible time, or this great age of innocence as were, which it's interesting how they kind of frame that. A lot of people do this too. They kind of retell almost the Eden story, but in anthropology as it were.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that we do learn our lessons from history, that we do understand that capitalism was an experiment to begin with, but that we also can't romanticize the past, because we also didn't have, flushing toilets and toilet paper and stuff like that. So now that we have what we have now, what we can turn it into is what's important. That's what I like to concentrate on, is what we can do with a past where we know as human beings, as a species, we're actually more altruistic than we are retributive. Although retributive is an instinct, it's a basal instinct that we now know most of the time we shouldn't be applying it. It's not actually good for us. It doesn't turn out to be a healthy way to go. We have to fight our instincts in the retributive part, so that when somebody hits you, instead of hitting them back, you have to wonder,
and then they never hit you again. It's not retribution, it's forward thinking justice.
But I mean, restorative and transformative justice, restorative justice is, now that you have hit me, what redress can we have so that no one gets hit again, but you get whatever it was, because nobody just hit somebody else. There's always some reason. They're traumatized. They've been hit themselves. There's always some reason why a person lashes out like that.
Yeah.
And then transformative justice is, of course, trying to prevent the hit from happening to begin with. And that, to me, is the one that we need to be aiming at. But to get to transformative justice, we have to go through restorative justice first. And when you're talking restorative justice, then reparations come into the conversation, because to have justice, you have to restore a balance that was never really had. And to get that balance restored, or at least put together the first time, then you have to transform literally everything that we're doing, as a society. You have to basically give money to the poor. It's that simple. You just have to give money to the poor.
That sounds like commie talk.
It is.
Give money to the poor, give homes to the homeless,
Here's the
Give
thing.
people better jobs. What are you, a commie?
Here's the thing. I think my dad doesn't like having political conversations with me, because here's how like the last conversation happened. It was snowed in Seattle, and my dad would happen to be pick up my stepmom from work, as it were. So his dad offered to drive me all the way down to Federal Way as well to drop me off since it snowed. He asked how I've been. I said, "Oh, I've been working a lot. I've been have a lot of work to do. I wish I didn't have to be forced to work to survive on the capitalism." And almost on command, my dad points to a homeless person on the street, because there's a lot of them in Seattle. I was like, "Well, that person seems to have a great life." And it's just I immediately went to yeah, but there's 6 times as many empty homes as there are homeless people, as it were. So it's it's not caring. But yet I later figured out, does my dad instantly know that my dad probably doesn't realize that he's proving my point, that the reason we have homelessness, as it were, is as a turn from me not quitting my job or deciding not to work for whatever reason, or can't work, as it were. And so I have to work because I don't want to end up like the homeless person, because he immediately pointed to that as I started complaining about or thinking about not working.
This is an example of the worst thing that can happen to you under capitalism. Aren't you glad we live under capitalism?
I mean, the restorative justice thing is very interesting. I mean, I'm not an expert, not by any stretch, but the Scandinavian model seems to work very, very well and has very low rates.
Yeah, all they have to do is be pretty and walk down a runway. Scandinavian models.
I can't say recidivism. Oh, I'm on my second glass of Calvados. I'm sorry. Recidivism is too difficult.
I thought you guys invented the language.
I personally didn't. and given that our American friends can't even pronounce boy right.
Boy?
In the maritime sense, and this business of calling it a damn buoy.
Oh, yeah.
What? Why?
How can we? Okay,
because we really like the singer, David Bowie.
Yes, well,
Hey, but how can we know that you're talking about the boy as in a male child, or a boy as in that thing that's floating in the water?
That's English language. Get over it. It's full.
And you guys mispronounced the word geyser.
That stuff.
Or glacier.
Yes, David, we did steal the language, actually.
Well, the French also conquered you, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Sophia, I love how you spell boy there as well.
Does England have cat boys?
What? Probably. Probably. I don't know. Oh God, I live out in werewolf country. How am I supposed to know?
Are you saying you're uncivilized?
He lives in the heart of an empire. Of course he's uncivilized.
I'm drinking Calvados. I can't be uncivilized.
I thought you couldn't be uncivilized and be English. I thought that was an oxymoron.
Oh God, no. You want to try going around some of our town centres on a Friday night, man? You'd see uncivilized at a level you never thought humanly possible.
Sounds like
technically, to be civilized just means you live in a city.
I think I actually got to at that chapter of the dawn of everything, the origin of the cities, as it were. Especially, it's how the fuck do we actually categorize it? It's kind of weird. It's interesting because we know of the cities that we know of now, but it's just we have other examples of cities before that it's not until Mesopotamia we finally consider this is a city, but yet there's archaeological discoveries of other kind of civilizations or other places.
Yeah, because I would think that the standard should be X amount of people living in in Y amount of space.
Is
Like,
Well, if you're British, it's does it have a cathedral?
because there were
Yes.
there were cities with populations of like 1 million people in North, Central, and South America long before Europeans ever arrived.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you gotta like things like civilization, all that. That's a very Eurocentric term,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
relative speaking.
It's also, as it's applied now, it's also a very Eurocentric application of the word civilization. You know, you tend to ascribe certain behaviors, group behaviors within the city to, and say that is civilization. And it's not necessarily the case.
Well, I do have to ask, did those cities, hey, Joey, did those cities like of 1 million people have cops or anything? Like, what was their version of like public safety? I guess.
Roughly how long?
It would be more. It's more community policing. It's always been more community policing. There's a stronger social contract in societies like that. There just is. But your stronger social contract is also something that leaves this huge room for a variety of people. So while you have a stronger social contract, there's far less dogma in that social contract. So you don't have to dress a certain way. You don't have to sleep with just the right people. You don't have to, like if you want to cross dress, then cross dress. If you want to be, if you decided that you're a different gender, you're not the one that whoever looked between your legs decided you were. You could. There's a word for you. There's a place for you.
And being autistic.
Yeah, I mean, all of that. There's space for everybody in that social contract, and so the dogma in the social contract itself is not nearly as bad, but the contract itself is stronger in that you are more responsible for your actions. You're being raised to see that you are not only responsible for your own actions, your actions can then trigger other people's actions. You are responsible for your brother. You are responsible for your siblings and your people around you. And so the social contract gets stronger. So policing, when you're using community policing, it becomes a lot easier to police a population that's, for the most part, it isn't until fists start getting thrown that there's serious issues. I mean, once emotions are there, once there's violence going on, that's when there's serious issues. And so your society is doing its best to not get to that level. So you're like, say, for example, in Lakota culture, there's rules that you do live by. Like, for example, it's completely taboo for one man to fight another man over a woman. Totally taboo. Like, if you do that, they say that there's a curse that will follow you for 3 generations if brother fights brother over a woman, or if a man fights another man over a woman. It's supposed to be really taboo. But the rules for being together, for having sex, for what quote unquote cheating is, are totally different. If you're a woman and you want to have sex with a dude, you just ask him. And if he says no, then it's actually kind of a bad thing to say no.
Yeah, because that means he's gay.
You're dishonoring the woman by saying no. And so it's almost your duty as a dude to say yes to a woman who asks you. If you're a woman and you ask a man who's already married, you're now crossing the other woman, his wife. And if you cross her, there's huge issues, because some of the only times that the rules are you can go ahead and fight is if it's woman to woman. women are allowed to fight other women, but women don't typically fight. Like their little groups that they'll make within the society, because like everybody has their own little cliques, right?
Yeah.
The little groups that they make within the society all become part of a greater group, so that when there's problems between two women, then you've got elders will get involved. And so there's always talking first, trying to talk it out, trying to have people to kind of get in the middle and be more of a mediator between two parties. You know, this is the time where your in-laws will get involved. If there's a problem with your spouse, you're not allowed to talk to the same sex spouse-in-law. So a man cannot talk to his mother-in-law. A woman cannot talk to her father-in-law unless there's problems in the marriage. If there's problems in the marriage, then you talk to that person, because they know their kid better than anybody. And so that's the only time that talking is allowed. There's all kinds of little teeny tiny funky rules like that in Lakota culture that are intended to keep people from getting themselves into trouble. And I think that that's what we're talking about when we start talking about laws, when we start talking about legislation. We have attempted to take all those little tiny, teeny cultural rules that were intended to keep us out of trouble and make them big legislative laws to try to keep everybody out of trouble. And your problem becomes there's no real one size fits all.
Yeah.
It's too difficult to have that. You have to go back all the way back down to a very localized level in policing. You have to have something that's more neighborhood to neighborhood.
Right.
Like I have to, like the people that I should be seeing that are policing my city street should be the people who live on them too.
Yeah.
Or
It's
look
just that
like
simple.
them sometimes.
Right. And
No
another
cops,
form of
just social
policing
workers.
is just the pressure that we put on each other. Peer pressure is a form of policing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
Peer pressure's bad.
Okay,
Until
Nancy
the-
Reagan.
All peer pressures are bastards.
Actually, but unfortunately, some people when they hear our anarchist solutions to conflict, as it were, in the things is but we bring up social pressure, as it were, and peer pressure, as it were, to discourage behaviors and that sort of thing. And it sounds like to some liberals, Steve Johnson actually said this, that that's mob rule. Joe McClure, I think, actually pointed out, just is it saying that social pressure or that sort of thing is just mob rule, really reductive, as it were? And Steve goes, oh well, whatever, or yeah, well, it's kind of I think that comes up to that wall for some people in thinking, as were, that they think that they need to be some kind of police, not necessarily they agree that the current police form needs to continue on, but some kind of policing institution needs to be around.
Well, the current policing we've got is retributive. It's not restorative.
Yes, exactly.
It's white supremacist too.
Oh yes, exactly.
It's fascistic. Just
Yeah.
straight up fascistic. It comes
it's
straight
built
from
on-
sheriffs.
Yeah, it's built on a concept of vengeance rather than amelioration.
Yeah.
The whole system is very southern.
It's a lot of people who research about the origins of policing, as it were, Christian Williams and scholars, and they'll find texts, as it were, of the police are here to protect us from the dangerous classes. And what are you looking to?
Well, I mean, it's basically the same words, but a different time frame, and it's the same thing as a sheriff who will throw you in the dungeon if you do not do what the king has said.
Yep, exactly. You'd be rebel rousers and creating anarchy and demanding workers' rights or to be free, as it were.
Which sounds like a utopia to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't help that there's a sort of common misperception of what anarchy actually is, though, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, people just think it's like some kind of chaotic,
Yeah.
you know, and it's going to look like Lord of the Flies, even though like we have instances in which there have been people who have been stuck on islands just like that. And they
Lord of the Flies is not how children would act.
crazy.
It's how British private school children would act.
Exactly.
Well, they're doing that to the country now, currently. Thank you very much.
I think that was the point of like the book of the Lord of the Flies. It was more critique of the British like a private school system, not on like the state of nature, as it were. Again, people misunderstanding the like the subtext of the book, as it were. It's
I don't know if
1984.
it's misunderstanding. It's people tend to. It's the same with all allegorical fiction. People tend to read into it what they want to read into it. So
that's true.
This is why the right love 1984 so much.
Yeah.
I got sent to the office over a discussion where I was trying to argue that we were just talking about the book and it just escaped my brain.
Lord of the Flies.
Yes, Lord of the Flies. Thank you. We were talking about Lord of the Flies. I think I was in maybe 7th grade at the time, 6th or 7th grade, something like that. I got sent to the office because I said that it was an allegory about what would happen if specifically British private school boys got stuck on an island.
Yes.
And my teacher got really upset with me because she insisted, no, it was if children, any children from anywhere.
We know that is how British private school boys would act, because that's how they did act. They got stuck on an island, they would murder, rape, and torture each other because that's what they did at school.
Yeah, have you ever listened to The Wall by Pink Floyd?
Fucking doing it.
I mean, look at some of those like British like private school children that like grew up to be politicians.
Yep.
There is a book brought out recently. I can't remember who the author is, but I think it's called Sad Little Boys, and it's a bloke who was sent to probably Eton, I think, when he was young, and he's writing about how it purposefully engineers a type of sociopathy into these children, which is pretty terrifying when you think about it. You know, they go to Eton at 11 years old, I think it is.
Well, all you gotta do is just listen to Pink Floyd's In the Wall.
Yeah, Brick in the Wall. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Yeah.
Of course, back then, private schools were called public schools, and public schools were called state schools.
We still call them public schools. Don't ask me why. I have no idea.
Because they're run by members of the public rather than the state.
No, I do know why. It's because historically, originally, they were set up to be schools for underprivileged children, actually. And the local parish, the local county, whatever, would pay for these children's education. And it was because I think it must have been after the plague years, because it was a way of getting young people of us backgrounds into positions where they would be able to go into positions of power, whether it was clergymen or, you know, as bureaucracy within the British nation at the time, as it was. It's a very peculiar history we have. Yes.
Well, and you've also, you know, you combine that with the human tendency of the people who are truly depraved, the sociopaths, the psychopaths, people who are going to be targeting children for abuse. they're attracted to certain places, and schools like that are those places.
Mhm.
Although they have to go there, they have to have parents who can afford the 30 grand a term.
Mhm.
So, which is another obscenity, you know. It's something like 80% of our CEOs, 70-odd% of our judiciary, and so on and so forth. The vast majority of people in the higher echelons of British society have been to public schools, which is pretty depressing, really, you know, because they all sit there and make the noises about us being a meritocracy, and it's just horse manure.
We have a similar situation here in the States with the overwhelming majority of our courts and legislatures being, or at least the U.S. legislature, being staffed by people who came out of the Ivy League.
Yeah.
Which again,
Well,
30
it's-
grand a term.
Well, it's like our governors and our politicians. That it's the same thing. Like especially on the Republican side, they like to say, "I'm for the working man," but then they don't really care about the working man. And the only thing that they have in common with the working man is that they were in the military or something.
And sometimes like even like when they are in the military, they would get criticized for their services or if you got really intelligent strategists or to be able to attack again, it's like a work service as it were. But also well, I just had a thought, damn it. Oh, damn it. I hate it when this happens. Just like, hey, I have a thought, but then there's another thought, and then I had to like speak that thought, and then like the other thoughts they come in.
Can you follow the old thought to try to find it?
Hey, I'm trying to find the old thought. It's like when politicians as being in were in the Ivy League and that sort of thing, and the judiciary like
Public school, sociopaths.
So bad. I'm sure it will come to me later, but we'll mention the news of like Betty White dying as were. She died just before she turned 100 too.
That was so rotten. That was so rotten. Oh my god.
And already the conspiracy theorists are jumping in saying 1 week after she got a COVID booster, she died. Coincidence? It's like, no, it was a week before she turned 100, you dumb fuck.
Yes. I mean, not gonna like. I totally get it. Why many people are like sad to hear the news of like the passing of like Betty White, as she is a national treasure as well. Up until like the age of 99, she can like.
I just wanted to see her make 100. That's all.
Right, yeah. I mean, George Burns managed to make 100 and was still smoking cigars, but then he died a week later or something like that, or a month later, as it were. But I'm of the opinion as it were, maybe because I'm not that a huge Betty White fan, but I can definitely understand the appeal. I was just like, well, she's 99, so of course she died. But again, not to shame anyone that felt sad for like Betty White dying, especially just before the end of the year too.
I wouldn't call it sad. I would say it's more like, God damn it, that just sucks. It's not really sad. It's just sucky. Because I mean, it's not a tragedy. The woman was 9 years old.
That's always my point. It's just like, okay, Stanley the dying. That's like, oh,
it's like 3 full lives that she lived. That's a long time to live.
She basically
just turned herself 12-year-old getting killed.
Right. That's a tragedy. A 12-year-old getting killed. There's someone very young getting killed. A 21-year-old getting killed, something like that. Or sometimes like a 1-year-old like black activist is where that's like, okay, what's going on? But those are tragedies because of very young lives that have like much longer lives to live as were. So yeah, that did happen.
Sophia Loren is still alive. That's like interesting.
I don't know who Sophia Loren is actually.
Sophia Loren, the Italian actress.
Oh,
okay.
Her name's not like it's not sparking a memory for me. I'm sure I probably saw.
Oh, good lord, man! You utter barbarian.
Yes, I am.
I know the name. I don't know that I couldn't tell you a list of movies that.
Life Ahead, Yesterday, The Day, and Tomorrow, 2 Women.
Sophia Loren was just stunningly beautiful when she was
Bridget Bardot is still alive. Yeah.
El Cid, A Special Day, Grumpier Old Men.
Oh, okay.
I've probably seen her in that one.
In some other good news, fucking not. Yesterday's British newspapers were full of our honours list, which is it's ludicrous, it's stupid. It's where we get our sirs and our dukes and our barons from. It's a load of fucking nonsense. And the highest honour in the land, I can't remember, Knight of the Garter, I think it is. Don't ask. Very weird. But this is a honour which is personally bestowed by the Queen, was given to the former Labour war criminal in chief, Tony Blair. I am very angry about that. Unfortunately, we are, despite the fact that we don't fucking have one anymore, in case nobody had noticed, still handing out Commander of the British Empire, Knight of the British Empire, and other Empire medals. We should probably stop that right
Well, technically, you still have Canada and Australia.
Yeah, or New Zealand.
Only for another year, I think. Australia is having a referendum on it quite soon, if I remember rightly. It's about time Canada and New Zealand just said, "Fuck that, bring in the soldiers." Really?
Yeah, totally fair, like those countries. Yeah, just like, why do we bother? Come on. It's just like, even though sometimes like the British Crown can do like good things, like it preserves some like
one of them dies.
No, well, that's a good thing. Yes, exactly. For sure. Anytime any member of the royal family, well, at least the older generation of the old royal family, the racist ones, which is most of them, dies. That's
what about the sex trafficking one?
Oh yeah, there's also that. Yeah.
So far, what's his name? The one who left seems like a good guy. That's why he left.
Harry. Yes.
With Meghan Markle, you mean?
The one who miscegenated the royal family.
Yes.
Yeah. And there was also, yeah. I mean, he seems okay.
My Republican adopted mother now, when that whole thing was going on with the whole Meghan Markle thing, the Republicans immediately supported the British at this point, but then despite their entire shtick was, we fought a war to get away from the king, but now let's support the king on this bullshit issue. It's okay.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing, because Republicans, the original term of Republicans is someone for a republic, basically against a monarchy.
And they every Christmas Day we have to put up with the bloody Queen's speech. Although thank God my family, we don't watch it. We're not interested. But
I watched some of them. By the way, what are you going to do when the Queen dies? What's going to happen?
Party!
I am so looking forward to King Charles.
Are we going to get Are we going to get a Concorde flyover with the British?
We don't have any more flying Concords, but we will get all the stupidity, and we'll be given a week of public mourning and all the other nonsense. It's just like, yeah, well, I'm going to carry on doing exactly what I always do and hope that Charles is as bad at his job as his predecessor Charles II was.
We get a Spitfire.
Charles I even.
The most interesting thing about King Charles I. America has a fetish for the British, the crown, the monarchy, and so on, because they're authoritarian fascist assholes.
Yes.
Well, it's so interesting because I thought we hated the crown. I mean, that's what the movie Patriot was about, right?
See, that's the problem, though, is that there's a huge chunk of people. There was a huge chunk of people when we were doing the revolution thing. There was a huge chunk of people then that were like, no, we should be listening to the king. Well, guess who their descendants are?
Yes, exactly.
The U.S. population, well, what would become the U.S. The population was pretty evenly divided: a third for revolution, a third for staying with, and a third for I don't really care.
Yeah, exactly.
There was something very interesting. I read recently, actually, and it was George III when he was Prince Regent and was generally viewed as a bit of a stupid fop. Wrote several letters where he was vehemently, really, really passionately opposed to slavery everywhere, not just in England, but in the Americas as well. He was wanting to abolish slavery in the Americas.
And that's why there was any opposition to the crown in the South.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they were all
guys-
rich patrician
guys-
assholes, aristocratic
Have you
types.
guys seen The Patriot before?
I actually
movie,
have
yes.
seen that movie. From
That
Mel
movie was
Gibson.
so fucking ridiculous.
It was.
No, they're not slaves. They're all free, and they choose to work for me.
Well, then you can have the joy of fighting in the king's army. You know, Isaac, which is funny because in that movie, Jason Isaacs looks like Lindsay Lohan in that movie.
Try asking the Scots about Braveheart if you really want that.
I mean, I think Mel
Hey,
Gibson.
Phoenix.
Hey, Phoenix. I think Mel Gibson, like for a Populitica, as it were, several students about that culture that like he was appropriating were saying like, no, that's not how it happened. It's not going to happen. Eventually, he said to one of them, "Make your own damn movie," as it were. It's just like. That's how he takes criticism for his historical inaccuracies, as it were. It's like,
Oh yeah, so it is done.
Well, I mean, that's the same kind of thing. It happened with Dances with Wolves too.
I
mean,
was
when
gonna ask
Dances
you
with
about
Wolves
that.
comes out. When that movie came out, people kept asking me, "What do you think of it?" And of all of the movies that were done before, that one was most historically accurate.
Mm.
However,
And that the white guy came in and thought he was better than everyone.
Yeah.
just because of all the movies that came before, all those ones like that's a really, really low bar to try to hurdle. Like it's
yeah.
you basically have to step over that bar. You don't even have to like step up over
Yeah.
that bar.
Yeah.
You know
What's
what I
your
mean?
feeling on Pocahontas, Joey? We're just asking.
Yeah, that one's bad.
Oh,
that
yeah.
one's so bad.
Yeah.
That one's absolutely horrible. Oh my god, the Disney Pocahontas was so bad. I mean,
she was
everybody
13.
that I know watched it because you have to, because if you're indigenous, you have to fucking watch it, if for nothing else, to sit there and like yell at the screen.
Before Dances with
love
Wolves,
that
all the
idea.
Native Americans be played by people like Rita Moreno.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I've heard
like
it's
Avatar.
exactly.
Yes,
movie, I've
Avatar was
heard.
the same.
Yeah. Oh, Avatar was like, that was white savior all the way through, as it was the white non-blue person that was
Shit,
piloting.
Pathfinder. You want to
Oh,
talk about
yeah.
a white
Oh,
savior
God.
movie? Pathfinder.
Oh,
The Blind
God.
Side. The Blind Side. That's a white savior
Yep,
movie.
that is
That was the
definitely
two.
a white savior movie.
Yeah, because like most of the people that have helped me have been white, but I've also like told them I have my own beliefs and stuff too. So you're not gonna
Oh,
like,
don't forget the help.
you know,
Oh,
help us
Oh,
pretty
in
bad.
Green Book.
Green Book.
We just refuse to stop making these movies.
Yeah, we refuse to stop making them.
Well, people see those movies as being somehow inclusive, and like
Yeah.
It's
the
like
only
they
way-
thought Chris Rock was being serious when he said, "Get a white friend."
we had a period in the UK where a lot of the dramas were set in northern England, which is my stretch of the world. you know.
North.
Up
Northern.
north.
It pronounced
It's
northern.
grim up north. And
Lots of planets have a north.
there were lots and lots of actors from the south and from London in these things. And it's like, oh, for Christ, We've got
Yes, I am from up north. It's
15
quite lovely up
million
here.
people living here. I'm pretty sure you could find one at least. It was, oh God.
They don't want to hire local. That's the thing. They want to like do that. It's just like
It's slightly
No, it's
changed
because
now.
up on British television, you're not allowed to have anyone who doesn't speak with
Oh.
received pronunciation.
Well,
Well, I
this
gotta-
is the other.
Well,
This is the
I
other
gotta
thing.
run, guys. But
Where's that?
I'll see you
Aw.
guys later this month.
Take care,
Easy.
Isaiah. Look after
You
yourself.
too.
See you
Happy New
later,
Year.
Isaiah.
Bye, Joey.
Bye.
I'm gonna listen to Alanis Morissette tonight too for the first time.
oh, okay.
For the first time, really? That's actually pretty good.
No, for like like fully, I guess.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Sit down and listen to the album all the way through, you mean?
Yeah. Active listening as a word. Yeah, that's
Well,
what I'm saying.
everyone knows I act white, so might as well.
Specifically, you act like a 16-year-old
Do
white
not.
Well, it's like my interests as a black man are not the same as the stereotype interests are. That's the thing.
You act autistic.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I
think
got.
that's what-
Nobody
that's
acts
one
like
of
the
those weird
stereotype.
things that kind of, I think that's one of those weird things that spans all the different races and even genders, really.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is when you start grouping people by, well, these are autistic people, they are
Mhm.
neurodivergent,
Mhm.
Yep.
then you get a more accurate guess as to what people's behaviors are going to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, take
I'll
care.
see you
Isaiah.
guys
See you, Zach.
Later.
See you later,
Laters.
Isaiah. Bye-bye.
Be safe.
Before I forget, Joey, you kind of mentioned about like your hearing to get disability. That's actually why we wanted I want to like bring Mithra on, because like weeks ago, hey SJ, how you doing? No, this was weeks ago. People were talking about like wheelchair stories and wheelchair horror stories, because it was just, yes, this is a very common thing for like well-meaning people, usually white men too. Oh, let me help you, and just like manhandle the
Oh.
wheelchairs, as it were.
Yeah.
Oh, my wheelchair horror story.
Mhm.
I'm sure I've told you all, I used to be a taxi driver, and one of the jobs is when some of the cars that you get have ramps at the rear which you unpack to enable you to get a wheelchair in.
Mhm.
So I was sat at the railway station. This lad came out, wanted. Mine was the only vehicle on the railway station at the time that had a wheelchair ramp.
Mm.
So I got out of my car, started to help him in. It was absolutely hurling it down with rain, so not great. And I was wearing, I don't know, whatever shoes it was I was wearing. But, so I started off up the ramp with this young lad in the wheelchair. And because it was wet, my feet went straight out from under me. My weight went on the wheelchair handles. And I catapulted him out of the chair as well.
Oh, no.
Needless to say, I took him up to the university, which is where he was going for free, when we finally got him. But it was one of the worst moments of my entire driving life, that I just felt so awful. It was horrible.
God, I would too.
I've never.
He was
felt so
okay
bad.
though, right?
Yeah, no, he was fine.
Of course
All
not.
the
He was in a
guy-
wheelchair.
Yeah, all the other guys jumped out of their cars, helped him back into the chair, helped him up into the van, and all the rest of it. And I actually parked up the car and just said, right, I need an hour's break now. Because
Yeah.
this is awful.
Well, and that's one of the most nervous things about being in a wheelchair when I've had to be, because you're dependent on whoever it is who's in control of your chair at times.
Yeah.
And if anything happens to them, and so you're just sitting there going, oh no, no, no.
Mhm.
I just felt so responsible, and I was responsible. It was my fault, I should have.
Yeah, you're a bad
There were
person. You
different.
should feel bad.
I am a terrible person. It's true. Just ask my ex. But
Yeah, that
yeah,
would. Oh, and I would hate being the person also who's pushing the wheelchair up into there. I mean,
the lad still wanted to pay me, and I was like, no, I can't. I can't take money off you. Not after that. Really, I can't.
Mhm.
Wait until next time.
Take care, Emily Chambers. I'm assuming if you're like saying that because you're going like head out. Thank you for coming. Yeah, because like that was what we mentioned like last time about like wheelchairs were because a Twitter thread I saw from a woman in a wheelchair has had the experience
Oh
of like
no, Joe.
someone helped them at the dog and ended with you pushing them into the lake.
Oh God.
oh,
Don't ever touch a wheelchair without permission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the woman was like saying like the person the man, it was a man, and so and the person in the wheelchair was a woman, and a man was pushing it up, and that goes into the whole dynamics. And so we're about that power dynamics, and she's like afraid of like what's the worst gonna like happen, and he said nothing. Just push her up the hill, and it's a big hill, so it's like a decent amount of time until finally he like got the hill. Okay, there you go, and that's it, as it were. And maybe he was like waiting around for expecting a thanks from like her, but it's just like this is why it's so important that you don't do that. You don't just like manhandle someone else's like wheelchair. If they want it, they'll ask for it, as it were.
And
it's just like physically grabbing somebody and moving them to another location.
Well, it's like
It's-
the joke,
Which is only acceptable if it's a woman.
It's like the sort of joke about helping the old lady across the road, and she's actually wanting to be on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let me help you cross the road. It's like, no, I just want to get into the store.
Yeah.
I didn't want to cross in the beginning.
Oh, thank you for helping me. And you helped me to cross back because I didn't want to cross the street at all.
But yeah, it was something that was actually drilled into us when I was doing the training for taxi driving. Was you do not touch a wheelchair unless you're asked to. You do not move somebody somewhere unless they ask to be moved to that place. It's not. I mean, it's not difficult, really, is it?
No, yeah,
No, it's not. But I mean,
And
when you
try talking to the people as well, because here's the thing: they're people, not objects.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, I agree with that idea, SJ. More of us like need our own tasers. Yeah. Totally fair.
And I agree with that, David, as well. David Skog.
This podcast does not advocate the murder of children, not even white Republican children. Possibly Mormons, but that's.
Oh yeah.
I was in the Boy Scouts. I was in the Cub Scouts. I didn't, but I never moved up to the Boy Scouts as well. Wait, we didn't sell cookies. That's the Girl Scouts. We sell
The Girl Scouts are good. The Boy Scouts are meh.
Yeah, the Boy Scouts is like I heard some like Behind the Bastards like episodes of like at least some terrible troops. It's kind of like decentralized. There is like the Boy Scouts of America, which is based off of like the British like system as well, but this is their own thing. There's Christian overtones in it as well, because there's actually kind of like one of the merit badges about like doing church work as well, and it has to go to the Supreme Court if like an atheist Boy Scout can like skip that or like do his atheist things as it were, or good things but in the name of atheism or not in the name of the church of Christianity. In order to do that, they have to go to the Supreme Court in order to like rule on that as it were. Then they've they know gays, and then the terrible things that some scoutmasters were doing as were. And how the Boy Scouts of America responded to those scandals as well. Behind the Bastards has a couple of episodes on like some terrible people as were. if someone just assumes I want them to push my chair, I would just assume they want me to shoot them. Which is why we said on the previous episode, as where it's like, can't I think someone modified their wheelchair so those handles have spikes on them or something like that, and those can be removed by the wheelchair user, and just you know what, something like that. Or have that thing lowered all the way down, so if someone wants to push that person, they have to go all the way down in an uncomfortable position to push it, as where it won't be convenient for that person to
I'd like to see them do the same thing that they're doing with trying to educate allistic children on autistic children and how to interact. I would like to see them do the same sorts of measures so that kids start getting some kind of lessons from the time that they're little about, I don't know, maybe kid books, television shows, whatever, on how to be a sighted person around blind people, how to be a walking person around people in wheelchairs. What are the things that we need to know, as if you're a person who doesn't need to use a wheelchair, what do you need to know? Instead of trying to make all the things like giving people in wheelchairs spikes, because I'm sorry, I don't want to put spikes on my wheelchair. In an emergency, I would like somebody to be able to grab my wheelchair, just like I would like somebody to be able to help me not fall.
Yeah.
They're
good. You teach people manners.
Right. I would like
true.
everybody else to learn it.
Yeah, it's about teaching people courtesy. And that seems to have gone out of the window a bit in the last.
We could put that shit back in schools. I don't see why we don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. On a little side note, a very little side note, talking about Boy Scouts, there was a movement in the UK. I don't know if it went over to the States. I doubt it somewhere. Called the Woodland Folk, which was socialist scouting, because Baden Powell, the man who founded scouting, was a racist, imperialistic piece of crap. So a bunch of British socialists set up an alternative called the Woodland Folk, which was a lot less militaristic, because it was rather, in its time, it was quite good, It's more or less died a death now, I think, but there was hope in the 50s. There were hope.
Yeah, not surprised. Well, we
should start Antifa Scouts.
Yes, absolutely. Because just going back to remembering about the Boy Scouts. Freedom potions. They're called freedom potions. We call them freedom potions. Because there was so much loyalty to God and country in the Scouts motto and that sort of thing. So of course there was double indoctrination on my part to be pro authority, as it were, because
Catholic,
that sort of thing. Yep. Raised Catholic too. Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of cultural appropriation in the Boy Scouts too.
Yes.
I remember that about just about every Boy Scout I encountered when I was a kid. You're Native American?
Oh no.
Yes, leave me alone. So I got a question. I want to ask the people. So Pepe the Frog. If you're on in Twitter or in Twitch or in Discord, you see emote that either is Pepe the Frog but making a different an expression as opposed to just this, or a frog looks similar to that, as it were, looks similar to a Pepe the Frog. What's your reaction to it? Is Pepe been reclaimed, as it were?
I know it's not as popular on the right, but if I saw it, I would probably just assume that person was fash until they demonstrated otherwise.
I would assume one of two things. Either it's somebody who's far right and probably libertarian, fascistic, bigoted, or they're indigenous. because in indigenous online social media circles, Pepe has been reclaimed.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
And so there's a possibility, especially if you're like, that doesn't look like the kind of message that I would see coming out of the right, but you see Pepe the Frog on it, it's probably because it's an indigenous person, because they're using him to be like a crying, like the crybaby sort of persona. He's found his way into memes in indigenous circles. So
That's interesting. Did not know that.
We didn't. I mean, it's partly because I just was not that aware of what was going on at the time. You know, the Gamergate thing and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't involved in it.
Mhm.
I got back into politics, online politics, in, I don't know, 2012, 2013, 14 maybe. So, you know, I kind of missed a big chunk for several years, but I'm quite glad I missed Gamergate and all that nonsense. Because you look back at it and you think, you know, really? Why?
I don't know about Hong Kong liberation. Are they a democratic movement, or are they a not a false flag, color revolution? That's what they're called. Basically, a U.S.-sponsored thing to destabilize the region. Or are they an actual movement, or are they an imperialist movement, or what are they?
Yeah, don't worry, Phoenix. I will make the public post about like Lindsay Ellis or like any other popular YouTubers as well. Because that's another thing we can like bring up too. But like and Pepe plushes. So that's the thing. I have actually friends that like are far from being Nazis as one of the people who be far from being fascists you can get, and they say that like the frog itself is not Nazi, and they want to just be able to use it, or they claim it's been reclaimed. That's what some like people have like said to me, or the conversations I've like seen on hand. For me, it's kind of like I'm still kind of like I won't like immediately ban someone or like block someone for just like using the Pepe frog. It would depend on if I know the person or if like other factors as were. But like
it makes me pause.
Yes.
It makes my asshole pucker for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
And it makes me investigate that person further.
Yeah. Definitely. As someone said on Twitter that like the guy who made Pepe, which I totally understand, the guy who made Pepe, the artist himself, who did actually sue like Bank Alaska and other people who were trying to use Pepe on their copyright.
Killed Pepe off in the comics and removed him entirely.
They'd been better off using Dilbert, wouldn't they?
They probably would. And Scott Adams is like their politics too. Exactly. But I also heard that like apparently the artists of like Pepe is now into the NFT things. I have to follow up on that to be sure. That's just like
fuck NFTs. Did I don't know whether anybody watches him. There's a guy called Yong Ye. He does about news in the gaming industry, and he's gradually moving further towards a left-centre view of things.
Okay,
quite nice. But he did a report today from the CEO of Square Enix.
Yep.
With some god-awful letter talking to investors and shareholders and saying how he was looking forward to inserting NFTs into games. And it was all about, because the important people who play games are the ones who see it as a way of making money. I kind of think you're missing the point of what a game is, but never mind.
I think Case Explosions like took a screenshot of that article that was talking about that, and also highlighted a point. It's like, oh yeah, the majority of people who play games just like play for the fun of it, but I think the most important gamers are the ones that want to make money off of the video game. And it was just like, but that's where the video game industry, the AAA video game industry, has always been going, trying to like go after almost the whales, especially with their pay to win like models or all those other
Problem
things.
is, there aren't that many of them.
Yeah, the whales is always like a smallest. I know because I used to play poker, so I used to follow like that kind of like scene as well. Whales are always a smaller like a group as it were, and you have to like really like butter them up in order to keep them at the poker table in order to like win their money as it were. Yeah, but it's like that's the smaller demographic. So if your game is like even free to play games on the mobile apps as were is tailoring to those whales as were or the dolphins and then maybe the fish as were. So yeah, they do rank the players based off like how big of their cash flow is as were, and just like the casino industry. Then you're going to like be catering the game to a very small demographic, and yet your game and all the other free-to-play games are trying to cater to that same demographic too. It's just like, and it's going to kill the game and the game economy for like all the other players because it's not fun anymore. Because like I have to like want again another. You're trying to make me watch ads to get more crowns or something like that. You're trying to like get and like there's another thing, another currency I have to like keep track of that you want
Free to play, pay to win.
Yep.
Yeah. It's it was pretty bleak, that letter. There was something in it, and I can't remember what it was. It's gone.
Yeah. Yes, but like so many companies are just like going to start offering NFTs or like doing this NFTs. But like weeks ago, there was like an interesting podcast from like the second season of It Could Happen Here from Robert Evans, and then Gareth and Chris. They were talking about like the financialization because like it's now kind of the point that like if you're online long enough or a big enough platform on Twitter or Instagram or all these things and become a influencer as were, or you see yourself want to become those kind of like personalities, influencers. YouTube was also a part of this too, absolutely. TikTok now they now it's unfortunate how like more people are trying to like see themselves as a brand and trying to like sell that brand or promote that brand online as it were. But now you can like sell yourself by creating an NFT of yourself too.
Yeah.
It's just like capitalism has gone to this point as it were. And something that
Capitalism is absurd. It's a fractal absurdity.
Yeah. Can I just read this sentence or two sentences from this fucking letter? It says traditional gaming has offered no explicit incentive to this latter group of people who were motivated strictly by such inconsistent personal feelings as goodwill and volunteer spirit. This fact is not unrelated to the limitations of existing user-generated comment. Wow. So basically, people who are motivated by goodwill and volunteer spirit can go fuck themselves in the world of Square Enix. Yep. They've actually become the Shinova company, haven't they? They actually have.
Oh, and yet it's amazing how like I guess we shouldn't like give themselves too much credit because like Final Fantasy VII, like and hey Jordan P, Final Fantasy VII remake kept in all of like the like environmentalist like anti-capitalist like rhetoric as well, but they were also selling the game and telling and they don't mind if like telling the story because they can Square Enix can now just like make NFTs.
Yeah, I was just so angry when I read that. You know, it just shows what they're teaching in business schools around the world, really. Which
they don't teach anything in business schools.
Yeah, it furthers my ambition to burn every single business and management school to the ground. I'm the resident taxi driver, SJ. Oh no.
Because it's just like so many people are on the NFT things, and Dusty Smith like tweeted out today or some kind of NFTs just as a new way for like rich people to brag about how much money they wasted.
I think it's just the art world, the whole that with the just a big tax dodging scam, and now they've made it digital. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
And poor people are
God.
buying into it who are stupid and want to lick the boots of the rich.
Yes, because like, oh, I was on the crypto thing, was hoping to get rich off of the crypto. Well, let's try the NFT things because the blockchain is and all, and it's just like, oh god. And then the art world itself, like the whole world of like fine art and how they did things. President Mithril,
Yeah,
David,
Mithril, SJ, Mithril.
NFT, new financial trickery. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay.
New fascist tribute.
Non-fuckable tech voice.
Yeah.
That's what I just remember now. When we mentioned before about elites, like elite schools, like Ivy schools that form most of the legislators and the judiciary here in the United States, but also the rich people, as it were. This whole myth about the self-made billionaires, as it were, like Bill Gates. I basically not that long ago listened to the Behind the Bastards episode on Bill Gates. Not only was Bill Gates so lucky to be born, well, white and male, but also be born rich, but like he
dropped out of Harvard to make this in his garage, in his dad's garage, because his dad had a lot of money, and it sold because his mom was friends with the head of IBM.
Yes,
because
exactly.
They served on the same board because they're fucking rich.
He was like so like lucky, like needles on a point, as we're lucky, because his school in 1968. Yes, it was a prep school. Like prep school was a prep school, like side. But they had the foresight and the PTA, like Bill Gates' parents, as Bill Gates' mom, and the other mothers of that prep school had the foresight, like, hey, let's get a computer for this prep school and like have a mini computer club. And also Bill Gates loved that, being on the computer and programming on the computer, and also was allowed to skip math classes to do coding on that computer, as it were. So he was so privileged and so much. Not only going to a prep school, but going to that particular prep school to get a computer and be allowed to just skip math classes to do coding. And then yes, all the backing from his parents in order to start his company, as it were, because Microsoft was failing. And also the software at the time in like the 80s, it was open source. It was communal sharing. They were just all hobbyists, just like sharing all around, as it were, just like sharing all around.
I think you mean like 1970.
1970s, yeah. I agree. I have to re-listen to the episodes again to like get the numbers. But like, no, Bill Gates benefited from that, like sharing of the software too, to improve the software, as it were. He then just like later says like, no, you're using my software. You can't do that. You have to stop doing that. You gotta pay me money to buy the software, and become the intellectual property rights hog that he's become now. Even for like vaccines.
If it works for Disney.
It works for Disney. But even now, he's still resistant of like sharing the like intellectual property rights of the vaccines of Moderna and Pfizer to like other companies to help this global pandemic. Fuck Bill Gates. But that's the thing. Is just like there's so many things that happened to him that made him really lucky in order for him to be the self-made billionaires, as it were, that he is now. Just and that shows the elitism of just like not only of the corporate leagues, but also of the political leagues too, because like they all go to those same schools as well.
Well, and it's also luck.
Yeah,
like it's a myth that if you just work hard enough, it's a myth that if you work hard enough, you'll get by.
Yeah,
because that itself is a myth. Most people are not getting by anymore.
Yeah. Because and people who are successful, they'll manage to like luckily be successful in like either entertainment or all these other things, like Adam Carolla. I used to listen to him, and he still sucks. And he's not dead too. But like he would resented the idea that they hear that he is lucky, as it were. And so and so when you tell it to any other people, some may be resented to the idea that they're lucky, but like most people who are successful or actually successful, as it were, they like to think that like they like to believe the myth that they were pull them up from the bootstraps. So self-made. They just buy the propaganda themselves and then perpetuate it. Some of them probably are perpetuated so that the underlings that are working under them can believe that they can work hard at the 60 hours and the 70 hours for great.
It takes hard work, gumption, and being given a house by your parents, along with $250,000, and being introduced to the CEO of. I mean, they're just none of them. I mean, yes, maybe they did put in hard work. Okay, not Elon Musk, but Bill Gates.
Yes,
and Steve Jobs. But they also had wealthy families and connections and a lot of luck.
Yes,
and also they stole shit.
Oh yes, exactly. Bill Gates definitely stole shit. Oh god, Netscape is where Bill Gates wanted to crush Netscape. Essentially, it's just so this terrible browser that still nobody uses. It's now, even though it was renamed Edge, nobody uses it. It's either Firefox or Chrome or Safari, maybe, I don't know, or DuckDuckGo. But yeah, yes. Weird. Okay. I also weird thing about Bill Gates, he doesn't like music. No, nope. Jeff Bezos.
That is weird.
No, it's actually Jeff Bezos. He does not like music.
That would explain the failure of the Zune.
I have two of them.
Who the fuck doesn't like music?
But this is what's creepy about Jeff Bezos. He knows that socially, people are like, who doesn't like music? So when people ask him about what music do you listen to, he memorized the call letters for the radio stations, so that when they say it's like, you listen to music, oh, I like KISW. So he just says out when he asks if he likes music, he will just say the radio identifications of the radio stations.
Hello, fellow humans.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Wow.
And I agree, Joey. Of all the things, as you did to be suspicious of someone for not liking something like that, and it's wait, you don't like music, really? There's no kind of music genre. It's fine if it's classical. It's fine if it's some obscure stuff. Most times,
right? None at all. Not even I don't know, show tunes or maybe Disney songs.
You don't sing in the shower. It's even if the song that never ends, or children's tunes, or Rappy, or something like that, or Banana Phone. At least you listen to some music.
Ding dong,
not
ding
even
dong,
John
ding
Jacob
dong,
Jingleheimer Schmidt.
His name is my name too.
Cellular, modular, interactive,
I'm genuinely so confused about that. I don't understand how you can't enjoy some music of some description. It's so weird.
So SJ, your grandmother's also like that too. Yeah. It's I guess it's I don't want to pathologize people, especially since I'm not in that field of studies, as it were. But I think she hates all music. Okay, I think we can say we can be at least suspicious about someone if they just hate music or don't listen to music whatsoever, as it were.
Roughly 3 to 5% of the world's population experience what's called musical anhedonia, where they just don't experience emotions and stuff from music. Music for them is somewhere between boring and distracting.
I can understand the distracting part, but it's just to be, I guess to be bored by that too. But it's just but there's so much genre out there of music. It's just
I wonder if it's genetic.
Yeah, it might be. It honestly might be. I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
There's all kinds of weird things that are genetic. I found out, what is it, mustard? That enjoying mustard in the mustard family, that's actually genetic.
Yeah.
That if you don't,
so you're saying mustard is racist?
I don't even know if it goes by race. I bet you anything that they don't have enough data for that kind of
probably
study.
I mean, we've
I
domesticated mustard
like
so many times in so many ways.
True.
Yeah, I mean, tons of ways.
Yeah,
Is-
from
I
cabbage
believe-
to the
Oh,
seeds to
yeah, you
stalks and
feel
everything.
yeah, SJ. I think you're qualified to make a call on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, SJ. Oh yes, absolutely terrible person. Your grandmother. Absolutely, yeah. That's terrible. Yeah, exactly. But so yeah, I guess that, like if there's enough people, then we can probably like study it to see if there's actually like a genetic correlation between like liking mustard and genetics, or kind of like
I
how
think
like some people when they eat cilantro, as it were.
Tastes like soap.
Yes, it tastes like soap to some people.
I don't know whether it's the same, but
Yeah.
I have that with heat in food. So
Oh.
curry and spices. I genuinely even something like just somebody putting a spoon that's had curry on it into my food. I can't eat it. It renders it inedible to me.
Ah, I see.
So
Yeah.
you hate spices?
No, I absolutely loathe. I
And
the
yet
smell
you
of
went
it.
to India.
You're the whitest person ever, Myth.
I
I'm
know,
sorry,
I
could you
know,
tone down this
no,
white bread?
No, I know. It's so fucking. I hate it because
Ooh, this mayonnaise is a little spicy for me. Could you?
but
It's
But
so too
I
spicy
can
for you.
eat any amount of herbs.
Okay.
So herbs, I'm absolutely fine with. Spices, just no, thank you. So I don't know. It's very, very peculiar.
Veterano has always joked that like mayonnaise is too spicy for her or salt is too spicy for her, but for her it's a sensory thing, as it were, because like yeah, and that's totally understandable too. And I get people not liking mayonnaise as well for the texture of it too. That totally makes sense to me. I still can. You have to give me eggless mayonnaise for me to like enjoy use it to make a potato salad or something like that because of my allergies. That's where. So yes, I am allergic to eggs. So anyone that has not like discovered that are non-binary or trans, please do so now so I can be around you.
Is it the white of the egg or the yolk that you're
Both.
allergic to?
No, it's actually both. We tested it before when I was young.
That's surprising because they're two
Yeah.
separate things, more or less.
Oh yeah. My parents have researched like egg substitute. Jonathan, can you eat this? Made with egg whites. Okay, no, he can't.
As your throat swells horribly.
When it was for like 9 years old or something like that, we tested that. Okay, Jonathan, it was like deviled eggs. It's like here's a tiny bit of the egg white. This work. Here, eat that. Okay. And so I vomited like not right in the kitchen. I did made it to the bathroom, but I did vomit it right then. And it's just like, okay, yeah, no, you're really allergic. But like we did not know that when I was a baby. I got my first shot of the MMR vaccine, which is egg based.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about
Oh.
vaccines because I knew some of them, or one of them at least, was egg-based.
It was the big common way to make it was culturing in eggs. Yeah.
That's honestly why I have not gotten my flu shots. I have been informed that there are flu shots that are based not based in eggs, so I can ask for that as well. No problem, no apologies, SJ. That's okay.
You need to vent.
Yeah, exactly. And like venting about like that horrible piece of shit that you had to like live with. Totally understandable. So for the sixth grade MNR shot, I did actually have to get a like doctor's note saying like, nope, he's exempt from this. You can continue having him at school. And also that's why when there was a measles outbreak, okay, it's only like 11 cases is where most doctors you talk to, 11 cases, that's not really an outbreak. It's like thousands of cases, that's when it's an outbreak. But all my teachers did actually have like a kind of email of notifications like, FYI, Jonathan is not like immune from like measles, mumps, and rubella because because if it does happen, when it was in the news about like the measles outbreak because of those fucking stupid anti-vaxxers. I've mistaken those people not vaccinating their children. It can cause a problem for me because then I wouldn't be able to go to school if someone has like a case of measles as well. Then again, that'll just be
My parents were anti-vaxxers, so it's different, but I get freaked out every time I hear anything going through. Like when the measles was going through, it went through my area. I'm like, oh fuck no, because I haven't been vaccinated. My parents didn't believe in them, and so here I am, a fully grown adult, like with my fingers crossed every time I hear something going around, and I'm just like,
Fucking
oh shit.
Gwyneth Paltrow is actively trying to murder you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is again.
Is it not possible to get the MMR jab as an adult then, Joey?
I don't know. I asked my doctor about that. He said he looked it up and then he never did. And I never really, because he said he imagines there must be some kind of schedule and amount that you can do for adults, but apparently it's just not common enough that they don't have a schedule worked up, or how much you're supposed to give an adult, or
because it's not a terrifically uncommon reaction to egg, is it? It's fairly, as reactions go, it's not an overly rare one.
Well, that's why it's like when you buy food products, that's where they now have it in bold, as where this contains milk, wheat, and peanuts, and fish, and eggs, as it were. Or and then they have the thing below that. It's like this was a process on machines and equipments that were processing all these other things, as were, so we can traces of it.
Yeah, I've seen those.
It's when if it's like making it has to say directly contains eggs, and I'll be like worried up for it. It's now to the point now it's just like if it's like under 2%, maybe I'll be fine. I'll just like take Benadryl and then like to relax myself, or continue taking a daily antihistamine sort of thing, or daily antihistamine, and I'll be fine. Because like,
so it's not so bad. Like if something touched an egg and then you touched it, then you'd have a reaction.
I had to touch the egg directly in order to get a reaction, like in wood shop.
Yeah,
because it's when we had that project of like making the car to like protect a egg passenger from like getting slammed into a brick. I was dumping out my passenger that didn't survive. Someone else was dumping out their passenger that didn't survive. Got the egg on me. It went to the nurse's office after that. Totally fine. But it's kind of gotten. At least my dad is worried enough that we did get a prescription for an epinephrine pen. So I do have those EpiPens, which I have not refilled well before the price hikes on those fucking things.
Yeah, those things are expensive.
Thank you, like Joe Manchin's daughter, for that.
I'm supposed to carry an EpiPen because I'm allergic to some kind of herbicide or pesticide. We're not really sure which, what it is exactly.
Jesus, you guys need to start moving to the UK, at least for the next 6 months.
If I'm going to move to Europe, I'm going to move to Norway or Sweden.
Yes,
Finland.
Because that's where the white.
I want to go to Finland.
Well, when I move there, you can come then, Joey. You're welcome to come over when I move.
It's tempting to go. It's tempting to like go to the UK, though, or somewhere else. But then again, each place has its own problems. Because like if I'm outside of the US, I can play online poker. I have not followed poker for a long time. Again, well, it's like since like it became like difficult to get money off of those poker sites, I was just like, why bother? But now it's just like I have $24,000 in credit card debt, and I'm trying to help out my disabled comrades. So it's just like, no, I never could save my money as a work. So if I deposit anything, I'm not going to do like the $600 first deposit bonus. Is like nope, that's just $10 or something like that, or free rolls, as it were. My baby brother has an EpiPen for his like deadly like a peanut allergy. I will say this: mine is not deadly. For others, it is kind of like a deadly like my brother's chicken allergy. My oldest brother. If like a fast food restaurant used the same oil for frying their chicken to like fry their French fries, that's the problem for my oldest brother eating those French fries. Again, not like it's annoying to him. For him, the throat does like swell up as were, and it was actually after discovering that my oldest brother has a allergy to chicken because he only eat 2 bites, and then his throat was so up, and it was like, let's test him and see what's wrong with that. Then they decided to test me, and that's when I found out I'm allergic to eggs, something we kind of already knew, in a way at least. But yeah, allergies, fun times when the immune system just hates you.
Yeah, I'm allergic to some other kind of medication, but it's not like when you have allergies like that, having an EpiPen, you would think that would be a cheap thing because you only have to buy one every so often. You have to replace them because, they do go bad.
Yeah.
But you only have to have one every so often. But no, it's the exact opposite. They're expensive as fuck. They know that you need them. You can't do what you should not be walking around without them. Like I shouldn't be walking around without one, but I am because I can't afford one.
Yep.
It's insane. It really is. It's insane.
This is also the country of like where people say, "Don't call an ambulance. I have to like pay the $3,000 ambulance fees."
Yeah.
In order to like, it's like
I watched. There's one of the motorcycling channels I watch. It's sort of accidents and bits of road going stupidity, and the number of American bikers you see coming off and going, "Don't get me an ambulance." Yeah, but you've broken your foot, mate. Don't get me an ambulance. Just don't.
Because they'll charge you $2,000 for the ambulance ride.
You'll see people like bleeding so profusely they need an ambulance, and they'll be telling you don't call one because I can't afford it.
I think some of those people will be like, "Hey, I know I'm bleeding badly and I just had head trauma." It's like, but I have to go to work.
Yep.
That's
That's the other
people
thing.
with epilepsy,
Don't call an ambulance. A lot of people are like, don't call an ambulance because I'm not going to seek medical help at all in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to drive myself to the clinic either.
Or even like at work injuries. I just listed a couple episodes of Megacorp, podcast like series about like terrible corporations. So right now they're doing Amazon. That like, and someone who has worked at Amazon, you hear all the numbers about injuries at Amazon fulfillment centers and warehouses, and those are terrible numbers too, like worse than any other industry. But like even people who worked at Amazon can tell you, it's like those numbers are low because many people do not report their injuries. There a lot of people be limping because they have really bad blisters on their foot or something like that. There's something wrong with their knee and they're not going to go to the doctor. It's because it's a lot of hassle and paperwork to get right up about the injury reports as well. And then also the managers will be hounding on you about like, are you feeling okay? Are you feeling okay? Should we close this case as were? And it can be used.
I'm sure Amazon does everything they can to smooth the way for that process and help their employees.
It basically is like when one person like had like a AmCare because Amazon Care, they have their own kind of like clinics as were in their fulfillment centers or their prices. Then
Fulfillment center.
Yeah.
God, I hate that. I hate that.
They would like sometimes get like 2 different managers. The thing is like there'll be multiple managers that you will sometimes see if you have a case pending, as it were, because they don't want you to have like this kind of like the same manager over and over again for any given reason, because they don't want you to form a personal relationship with your manager, as it were.
No, they don't want the manager to form a personal relationship with you. You got that the wrong way around.
Exactly, Joey, because like they don't want like the managers to care about you as a person, as it were. You're just like a cog in the machine, as it were, just another bot in the algorithm,
or a brick in the wall.
Yes, exactly.
Which is deep on so many levels.
Which is what the educational system is kind of like designed to do. Like I've said many times before, the reason why
the Prussian model.
The reason why the people who are hiring ask for a high school diploma, not for like any like basic literacies or mathematical skills. No, it's for attendance. if you have graduated from high school, it proves you have good attendance, which in a lot of like low-paying jobs, it seems to be the most important things. How was your attendance record, as it were?
Mhm. If you're able to get the diploma that proves that you were able to jump through hoops and show up every day and sit there and do what you're told for years.
Yeah, I had a friend who quote unquote flunked senior year twice because she kept getting pneumonia.
Yeah.
And she had to stay out of school. And as soon as it hit 10 days or more,
yep,
then you miss a year. She flunked, quote unquote, twice. And I keep saying quote unquote because she was a straight A student. She did all the homework.
Yep. Unfortunately, most public school systems for sure don't make the exceptions. As we're our educational system. There was like another point I wanted to like bring up as we're I think I did. I think
Did I hear the rumor right? Marjorie Taylor Greene has been
she's been banned from Twitter.
Yes, she got her fifth strike. Her fifth strike, as it were.
5 strikes and you're out, Karen.
So good news, as she's still in Congress though, but like
still
she's
complaining about Jewish space lasers on the floors of Congress.
Yeah, well, a Jewish space laser done burned her out of the freaking.
But according to
Twitterverse.
Farron, she's been fined over half her annual income from Congress.
That's a HIPAA violation. You're not allowed to talk about that.
Somebody's done so much stupid shit. That's why she said it's a HIPAA violation if I tell you my vaccination status.
No, it's a HIPAA violation for them to ask about her vaccination status.
Those poor hippos.
Poor hippos, yes, exactly. But oh my God, I'm sorry, Dana Cole. That's your congresswoman. I'm sorry, Dana Cole. That's your congresswoman. That's absolutely true. No, and I don't think the Democrats like put up someone to like run against her at that time because it's like a very red area of northern Georgia.
No, they did put a opponent up, and he was, or they were harassed out of standing, weren't they?
Maybe I have to like research that.
I know, or was he the one who got divorced? And
maybe I have to like look at it like more, because like I've heard a lot of things about that. Where it's just like, and I can totally believe that the person got harassed out of that for like some other kind of things. Because remember, Georgia was also the second state that like up until recently had like a Confederate battle flag as part of their state flag. And there's Atlanta there too, as well, with a very predominantly black population there. And so
it's crazy, you know. It's like I don't know. It's like one of our British political parties renaming itself the Cromwell Party. You know, it didn't end well for anybody.
But in 2022, Stacey Abrams, who like did a lot of like activism there, grassroots organizing in that area, is going to run again for governor of like Georgia because like
she's running again for sure.
Yes, I've heard that news that she's running for sure because she was cheated out of her like governorship in 2018 by like
the guy who was running the election was her opponent.
Yes, Brian Kemp. As we're a totally
our system is so
fucked, completely fucked up.
And I mean, it's like in 2000, the president was stolen because Roger Stone's like organized a riot to like ran out of like a voting office as it were that was doing the recounts in Florida to got them to stop the count as it were, and then allowed like the George Bush's like a campaign to like take the case up to the Supreme Court where they got the favorable ruling. Thank you, Anthony Scalia, and we got George W. Bush as president. It just and then most liberals were like, okay, I can do. That's our system. Granted, it seemed like it's okay. It's George W. Bush or Al Gore, and differences are kind of minor. We kind of now know that it's just like The differences might have been more significant, but we didn't have foresight futures were. But still, we were just okay. That's now George W. Even though he won, the lost the popular vote, as it were, and Florida was back and forth between Gore and Bush.
It's funny how the white supremacists keep losing the popular vote and winning the electoral college.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, weird.
there is a problem in the States, isn't there? That everything is a political appointment.
Yes.
That is not, you can't engineer a unbiased system or a system that has fairness built into it. There's the bugger. Yeah, there. I've seen the problem in my argument now. It wasn't meant to have fairness engineered into the system, was it?
Our system was built by white supremacist capitalists for white supremacist capitalists.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
the first people who had to try to struggle to get the vote was non-property owning dudes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like from the start, it was
And when we say property,
Classist.
we mean real property. That is to say, real estate.
yeah, like
land.
actual property, not actual people that they were.
You had to be
considering
middle
property.
class and above just to be allowed to vote.
Yep.
Well, that was taken from the UK. We had
Not
things
surprising.
called the rotten boroughs, where I mean, there was even one point where one person in an entire constituency was allowed to vote. It's just like, well, and guess who was standing? That person. You know, it's just come on, really. So we reformed.
Yep.
Of
Of course, appointed officials versus elected officials. Remember, Roy Moore got elected over and over again in Alabama
Yep.
to the Supreme Court of Alabama.
Yeah.
Even though he kept on getting removed because he made such horrible decisions.
As Senator Joe Arpaio of Monson County, Maricopa's County in like Arizona, he was elected, as it were, because our sheriffs are elected. Deputies are appointed, though. But I listened to the Behind the Bastards about Joe Arpaio as well, two-parter. My God, and it's just like, but also no, everyone like knew that like he was doing terrible things, but no
Running
one
concentration camps.
Yes, he was.
In the streets of Arizona.
But no one wanted to be the person to actually like punish the sheriff that was elected by that county, as it were. The demographics of that county finally changed, as it were, the last time. So like each and every time that like Joe Arpaio has like
He wasn't
run
just doing the concentration camps, though. I think he was also
chain gangs,
harassing people,
he will,
who were
yes.
political opponents.
Abuse
of power. Yeah.
Wasn't he the one that was banned from a shopping mall for harassing?
No, that was
teenage
Roy
girls?
Moore.
That was Roy Moore, who yes was doing.
Yeah, that guy's a judge.
Yes,
He was. I don't think he is at the moment.
Last I knew of Roy Moore, as he was running for the special elections of Alabama to replace Jeff Sessions, who became.
Yeah, he was the same guy. Wasn't he waving a gun on the stage at one point?
Mm-hmm. He had this tiny little gun.
That's definitely Roy Moore, always with the cowboy hat.
America.
And do terrible things to like young women and little girls. Bad enough, he got banned from a mall. And like
he was a 32-year-old harassing 14-year-old girls.
Yes,
Got banned from a shopping mall for that. He talks about how when he first met his wife, he talked about how beautiful she was and how he knew he was going to marry her. He was 20 and she was like 14.
And we, in some states, I think we still have like it's legal for parents to like have their children be married.
Good Lord.
It is possible for parents to marry their 12-year-old daughters off to a 50-year-old man in many states.
Even though it should be so illegal for like that man to have sex with that 12-year-old when they're not married. It should be so. And yet, those same states will also be against like full silver sex works too, as well.
Shit, those same states not too long ago were against interracial marriage.
Yeah,
They still are, let's be honest.
You could marry a little girl but you couldn't marry somebody of a different race.
Yeah.
In South Carolina,
They-
we had a
they-
referendum on whether or not to remove the ban on interracial marriage from the state constitution in 1998. I remember this because I was in high school in South Carolina at the time. They had to do it by referendum because no politician could touch it. With good reason, because the vote ended up being 60-40 to remove it. 40% of the state of South Carolina is still voted in favor of anti-miscegenation laws.
And that's all right, David. Some of those same people will complain about Sharia law too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The frightening thing for me is that the Tory party in this country are taking some very large leaves out of the Republican Party playbook and
Gerrymandering?
effectively, yeah, there's a bit of gerrymandering going on. There's political interference in the judiciary, basically telling them that they have to support them or they'll get kicked out. The BBC, which is not great, but does have a certain decent reputation, has been told it's basically there to support government and all government decisions. We've got Pretty Vacant, who is trying to abolish the right to protest now. That's going.
Yep, it is now legal to run over protesters with your car in a lot of states.
Yeah,
That's
true. And it's just very, it's very concerning. It's really concerning. We're screwed.
Well, it's like they're trying to get all the laws lined up to prevent what is going to be probably a global uprising.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
people all over the world are done.
Mhm.
Like first world countries all over the world, people who are living there are in. There are people in the United States that are in the same living sort of situation that third world countries experience.
Yeah.
And somehow I have somebody on my Facebook arguing, no, that's not capitalism, that's cronyism.
Well, okay, then they have to. I got that argument too, as well.
Yeah, I keep getting that too, but that's just like it's one of those talking points. That's
Right.
People are getting this talking point that no, that's crony capitalism. That's different.
It's Paul Joseph Watson also say that. I heard the same thing from liberals too. It's cronyism, not capitalism. What the fuck is cronyism? Then the bad parts of capitalism that you don't like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like,
And then he said I should read Soul, the far right-wing black guy who said that slavery wasn't all that bad, actually.
okay, anytime that someone suggested like you should read this, can I throw them a suggestion back at them? Like, okay, you want me to read Soul? Read W.E.D. Du Bois's Black Reconstructionism. Why don't you? That's a bit of a slog. If that's too much for you, The Soul of the Black Man. Then
It's crazy. It's really the elite, for want of a better word. I don't view them as particularly elite, but you know, the sort of top 5% of the population are starting to run scared a little bit because they know.
They fucked things up so bad that we're looking at the possibility of revolution.
Yeah,
People are memeing guillotines.
people
Yeah.
are building them.
yeah,
Like, I mean, people are making sure that they're putting them outside while they're protesting.
yeah.
Because when things are bad enough, then like people will feel like the only way to resolve it is like something like that.
Basically, once inequality gets bad enough, social cohesion starts to break down.
Mhm.
The rich start to live in
It's-
fear. They build huge walls to surround themselves. They don't interact with anyone but other rich people. And the poor say, I can't win, so I'm not going to play the game.
The
Yes.
next 12 months in the UK could be interesting because it looks like fuel prices are set to double. And that's not just fuel for your car, fuel
Right.
for your bike, it's heating.
Yeah.
And that's completely indiscriminate, except that, of course, the poor pay
Yeah.
a lot more of their income over
Here in
to
the
heating.
U.S., they call it heat or eat.
Yeah,
In the winter, a lot of people are forced to make the decision: do I
have to make
pay for
that
heating
choice,
or
yeah.
do I get food?
And I think that could be the breaking point. Because we've got a government essentially said, no problem, not a problem. And then they proceed to lie about, oh, we've increased universal credit. No, they haven't. They had to reduce. They reduced it by 30%.
Universities used to be free in the UK. Then they charged a tuition, and then 10 years ago they tripled it.
Yep.
And now they want like, but we're giving you more credit. It's like it used to be cheap or free. Go back to that.
Yep. Well, you can't have a population of working people who are educated, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Which is also why I think many the people suspect that like Biden is not doing student debt forgiveness, even though he has the power to do so. Also, if you do full student debt forgiveness, as it were, for college debt, as it were, wealth of black people in America increased by 40%, and some people are pointing to that's why Biden's not doing it. Is where we can't have the black people doing well in this country. No. It was another point.
I think it's much more basic. I think he just doesn't want working class people to have a chance at decent education. There was back in the 1910s, the 1920s, through to about the early 1950s, right around the country in the UK, wherever there were working communities, like mining communities, or in my area, mills, cotton mills, there were the Working Men's Institutes, and they had libraries, and it wasn't just a library with ordinary reading. They had Greek classics, they had political thought books, they had regular visits from politicians, from academics who would give them talks. They would sit down and discuss politics amongst themselves. So of course those had to go, because
you can't have those. Those are educating people in their own.
What was the name of the black guy that Donald Trump thought was still alive?
Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass. There we go. Yeah. I mean, his dad / owner spelled it out very clearly. You cannot teach the slave to read.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just like that phrase goes, you can't expect this power structure to give you the education that you need to overthrow it.
You cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools.
That's the problem with the hierarchy.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is.
And I don't care what liberals think. That's oh no, the top-down hierarchy is neither good or bad. It all depends on who's on top of it. When bad people or bad citizens on top of it, you just have to be very proactive to
yeah, that's what they said about kings. Hopefully you get a benevolent one.
that's kind of what the liberals are honestly just hoping for: benevolent CEOs, which is why some of them I have met have said, oh, but Bill Gates is a good one because of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Oh no! People
it takes a very, very special sort of human being who gets given power in order to deconstruct it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That takes a very unique sort of human being who would do that.
The only one I can think of off the top of my head is Che Guevara.
Yeah.
Destroyed the power structure and then walked away.
I'm sure that there are people like that. I'm sure there are, because I'm sure that they've been occurring throughout human history. We've seen them. We've seen people like that they were given power, but then they turn around and they start deconstructing that power structure.
Well,
and John Brown's actually a pretty good example too. I mean,
he had his faults, but Desmond Tutu in South Africa was a bit like that.
Yeah, I mean, even
One of my
a case
personal
could be made,
heroes.
somebody like Nelson Mandela, who,
Yep.
yeah, it's a power position that they took.
Yes.
They were given it by people who trusted them, and the trust proved to not be in vain.
And yet he was still considered a terrorist up until like 2008 because of his activities
Yep.
with the organization. He was a
Well,
part
yeah,
of.
because if you are from the far right,
Mhm.
then seeing somebody like that, it does
Mhm.
strike terror in your heart. And
Yep.
for you,
Yep.
it would be a form of terrorism.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Because a word like terrorism is based on terror, and terror is subjective.
Yes.
Some people, it is their absolute worst nightmare to be forced into an equity position
Yep.
with other people
They see the
that
world
don't
as zero
look
sum
like
game.
them.
They think that if somebody else is getting power, then somebody else has to lose power.
Right.
They honestly, I think they honestly believe that if black people get in power, they will start doing to white people what white people have been doing to them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was always the argument that Thatcher used against sanctions against apartheid.
Because then the black people get in charge, and then they'll start killing whitey.
Well, it's the same excuse that they use for the treatment that they did to indigenous people. Well, you guys were bloodthirsty before we got here. Never mind that there were no mass graves. Like, we haven't found one yet. The only mass graves that began were after the introduction of Europeans on the landscape.
But PragerU says you were cannibals.
Oh, God,
PragerU. Go.
I hate
Prager.
you.
Die in a ditch.
That's all you
Why would
gotta
you be
say.
a cannibal if you have corn and potatoes? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Really, you invented corn, you invented chocolate, you invented bananas. Like, all the people who are living in these tropical areas where you can literally eat the forests. Like, I mean, I was just reading an article, I think it was from Science Mag. Just reading an article where they're delving into studies now, growing number of studies in the Amazon, talking about how it's more and more apparent to modern scientists that the forested areas of the heavily forested areas in the rainforest region were actually tended by indigenous people, so that certain trees grew, and they were foodstuffs.
Both continents, wherever
So it's
there
like
were
a
people, they've
giant
actively
fucking
managed the
garden.
landscape. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you
Yeah.
look in North America, it's the same thing. What's edible is actually what's growing. Like, you can't, you know what you're doing. You can't starve in a pine forest.
Same in sub-Saharan Africa as well. You know, that
Mhm.
happened in Equatorial Africa.
That's like been I've seen mentions of that in like Dawn of Everything, and how they look at various different like indigenous societies in like the Pacific Northwest, like my area, and compared to California, is very interesting study, and they debunked it's like certain things they tried to like explain it as well too, is all quite interesting. A bit of departure, but actually also some finally some good news. Kim Porter, the police officer that shot and killed Dante Wright during the David Sherwin trial, because she thought that she was grabbed her taser, she's found guilty.
Yep.
Even Pat Robertson was doubtful about that claim. He's like, no, you can't make that mistake. They're just not the same.
Yeah, her white woman tears didn't work this time.
Yes, exactly. That's what someone else said as well. Yes. Yeah.
Another system that's fucked is how we choose juries.
Oh, yes.
The lawyers shouldn't get to choose the juries. Okay, I mean, they shouldn't get to, peremptory challenge. I want an all-white jury for my white defendant, right? Or an all-white jury for a black
it's even if the region area that the trial is happening is a predominantly black neighborhood as well, sometimes they still only get like one black person on the jury as well.
Basically, you should have like an independent thing that goes through and says, okay, these people are all eligible for jury duty. They're going to serve on a jury, unless they have some medical reason that they can't or shouldn't.
is. I mean, even like it was just like a lawsuit, like a trial of like a Christopher Cantwell, who he badly lost that trial because of like the jurors that they got is where they had to explain to the lawyers had to explain to them what the Holocaust was, because they were like white people in their 60s in America.
See, that's what one of the things that I would think that when you're choosing a jury of your peers, your peers is kind of a subjective word.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, we tend to think of it when we think of juries, well, that's just citizens, that's peers are just the citizens that live around you. And my concept is, no, that's not actually your peers, because there's people who live around me who have absolutely no idea what it's like to be me. They have no idea why I did what I did, what was motivating me to do that, you know, what traumas I might have in my life, what mitigating circumstances, you know. And if you've got somebody up there who's anti-indigenous, just plain and simply, then I've already got somebody who just hates me. They're looking to make sure that anything that happens to me that's bad is going to happen to me for as long as possible. So they're going to want to throw the book at me. They're going to want to, you know, see me go away for an extended period of time, you know, never mind whether or not I'm guilty. And how do you tell that? Like, how do you know that? Well, there's, you know, if you've got a whole jury full of white people, there's a good chance that one of them is going to hate me for the color of my skin. There's a real good chance that at least one of them is going to hate me for the color of my skin. Like, there's only so many questions you can ask jurors that's going to tell you whether or not this person is just a flat out bigot.
It's so hard to tell, especially when the cops, with the police reforms that they're receiving, have been like getting sensitivity trainings and all these other things. So then they know, okay, this is how we can hide my bigotry, as it were. Okay, I'm seeing the meme you just put up right now. I'm interested in this meme because I'm a fan of like the Metroid video game series. I haven't put them
early on, you know, when the game was just first being released. The marketing, you know, didn't know that Samus was a woman, so they just did the advertising as if she were, you know, a standard male hero surrounded by women, and now she's a lesbian icon.
Personally, for that franchise, I'm glad that like that there seems to be like a decent game and out now called like a Metroid Dread, which I haven't played at all, because like compared to the previous other like a game that like they had of like oh yes, Metroid Other M is where it's like, in order for like Samus to do any fucking thing in that thing. Oh, nice. Yeah. I haven't played many Switch games, unfortunately, so that's why I haven't like getting into any of the recent games that is on Switch. I still have not played Breath of the Wild too.
It's a good game. Like, I played it, beat it, 100%ed it.
Nice, as it were, because yeah, Metroid the Other End, which is like, oh my god, Samus cannot do anything until that like the man approves of it, even while she's dying in this boss battle. That's the problems with that. Anyway, I probably actually have to like go right now. Like, unfortunately, I still have like work to do, so I'm gonna leave you all from like now. I think it's like we covered a lot of topics, so don't forget like charity links page, which is also down in the doobly-doo below. Thank you, Joey and Mistral, for like coming on as always, and catch you all like next week. Later, people. Bye.
All right, later. Bye, Jonathan.
Let's go ahead and call it for the week then. Yeah.
Certainly will.
All righty.
Right, it's been fun.
Yes, it has.
And remember, everyone, to support Real Madrid, just like Mithril does.
What? Get out of
it! And yes, I have been just Googling random football clubs that are not
You
Man
bloody
City.
well have. At least, at least you can tell they're proper football teams as opposed to hand egg.
Next, it's going to be the Los Angeles Comets. Just
Fuck you. just why?
because you have to fuck with old white men. That's just the rule.
Ah,
Social
right.
justice.
Oh, right.
Everything you do
Hold
has
on
to
a
in some
minute,
way
you
hurt
don't-
white people.
I'm not sure you give John. Yeah. I'm not sure you give Tom this much grief.
No, because he shows his face.
Oh,
And he
yeah,
looks
well,
like Terry Pratchett.
There isn't a camera strong enough to take my face, so you know.
All right. So, remember, everybody, hydrate, medicate, masturbate. See you all next week.
Take care, everybody.